So welcome everyone to another episode of Art Side of Life, and I'm super happy to have Kat here. Hi!
Hey.
So I'm super happy that you joined today, and if you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and what is your specialty nowadays, and then we'll move on like how you get to that actually.
Perfect. Yeah. My name is Cat Coquillette, and I'm an artist and designer, and I'm the founder of my brand, Cat Coq. That's CATCOQ. And what I do is I make surface designs, illustrations, patterns that I then license out to my retail partners like Target, Urban Outfitters, print-on-demand shops online, and my income comes through those royalties from the things that sell.
That's perfect. That sounds like a good combination, definitely.
It's
And
a great combination.
yeah, and did you start right away with the licensing? And because as I read like your story a little bit, you worked also with the graphic design and art direction. So how did you come to this, and what was the transition?
Yeah, I started my career actually as a graphic designer, and then I kind of went through the ranks there and wound up as an art director over the process of about 4 years. And my specialty was branding, so I would do branding. You weave in a lot of strategy with the visuals as well. So I was working at an agency as an art director, and things were going well. But on the side, I would come home from work and I would paint. So a lot of watercolor paintings, acrylic gouache, things like that. And I started taking photos of the things I was painting and posting to Instagram. So within the matter of, maybe a few months, my following really exploded with people that were following me to see the artwork that I was putting out there. And I was looking for an opportunity to sell to these people because they were literally commenting, where can I purchase your work? And before, I'd never monetized my artwork like that before. My career was as a designer. So I started looking for opportunities of where I could sell my work to this audience on social media. And that landed me to a website called Society 6, which is a print-on-demand website. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
Yes, yeah,
it's
yeah.
basically a market. Yeah, it's an online shop where you can go and buy cool phone cases, home decor items, apparel, just a bunch of stuff. And every product that they sell on their website is designed by an artist somewhere in the world. So I upload my artwork to their products based off their product templates. And then if someone decides that they want to purchase a phone case with my artwork on it, oh, this is one. Hey,
Perfect.
there you go.
It looks
Yeah, but if
Moroccan or
it is Moroccan
Hungarian or
inspired.
something. Yeah,
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 yeah. But yeah, the customer wants to say purchase this, add it to their cart through the checkout process. And Society 6 will manufacture the phone case, ship it out to the customer, handle all of those relations, and then I'll get a cut of sales called royalty. And so that's kind of what I started doing on the side while I was still working at an agency full time. And it was a really great opportunity for me to kind of embrace this whole artist side of my passion. So I was still, working 9 to 5 as a designer, but then I got to paint and do digital illustrations on the side and then get paid for it.
yeah. And what was your kind of decision making in this sense? Like, why Society 6? Why not sell your own art prints? Because a lot of artists are thinking in these realms, like, oh, should I like get the full amount and print it myself and spend all this time, or just get smaller royalty and have bigger reach with the Society 6?
It was a combination of factors. The first one was simply I didn't know how to do it. I was doing a lot of research on what type of printer should I buy, or should I outsource to a printing company? How do I buy shipping envelopes? How do I set up a website? All of these logistical things that I just didn't want to deal with. I was doing this kind of as a passion on the side. I wasn't doing it so that I, build up this side hustle. For me, at least initially, I was doing it because I just loved creating artwork. So partnering with a print-on-demand company took a lot of the logistics out of the equation so that I could just focus on creating artwork, uploading it to their products, and then I was done. At that point, and, I can market myself and drive my traffic over to those shops, but I didn't have to deal with the logistics of inventory and, customer complaints or returns or all of those little things that I'm not skilled at. And that was the biggest reason. And also Society 6, that website, they had such a massive audience so that if I could get in with them, I'm not only driving my own traffic there, I'm also utilizing the audience that they have, which is, millions of people.
Yeah, but then now, if people start now, a bit later, because you started a few years back, would you have advice for someone starting out now? Because there is a big competition with artists as well. So maybe some things like what you can do as a starting artist.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I got started in 2014, and Society 6 was already a successful website, but they have grown so much in the years since. And now there's hundreds of thousands of artists selling their artwork through the platform. So it is a very saturated market on that specific company. That's where I still get most of my sales, and most of my licensing income through print on demand is still coming through them. But I do think I agree with you. A big part of it is because I was in the right place at the right time. So my advice now would be a lot of these print on demand companies like Society 6, Redbubble, Casetify, Drawdeck, all of that, read the contract, but most of them have non-exclusive licenses, which means that you can sell the same piece of artwork through their company and through as many companies as you want, as long as it's non-exclusive. So you can set up shops on a lot of different websites, and there's no financial risk. It's just a time risk, and you can see what starts to be more successful and then what isn't really pulling in that much money for you.
Yeah, so basically you need to create also more artwork and see what sticks or what is selling better on each platform, because all of them are a little bit different, right?
Exactly. And it's kind of a shotgun approach. So it's kind of, you're blasting your art. At least this is what's been successful for me, is putting my art on as many different platforms as possible, and then seeing which ones are most financially beneficial for me.
Yeah. And do you remember the first artwork someone asked you to, like, okay, can I purchase this somewhere?
Oh man, I'm pretty sure it was this, which I can't even sell now because I understand it's a copyright violation, but it's this quote from Mean Girls that says, "You can't sit with us." And
Oh,
I did,
yeah.
it was like calligraphy, and I did all these florals, and that was my first phone case that sold. And of course now now I know what copyright infringement, intellectual property is, so I can't sell those types of things anymore. But yeah, that was the first one. And I actually remember the first month that I uploaded all of my stuff to Society 6. Well, as in all my stuff, I probably uploaded about 5 pieces, and I sold 2 items. It was a T-shirt and a phone case, maybe 2 phone cases and a T-shirt. Either way, I didn't have that many sales, but it was such an empowering moment to see that people were actually interested in purchasing my designs on products like that. I had such a limited belief that I could make money through art. I always thought art was a hobby, and then design was a career. And so that really broke that barrier for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because a lot of people are like thinking or either scared just like how to start, and maybe you have like a full-time employment. So how long does it actually took you to start like full-time, going from the art licensing then being employed?
So, I mean, I definitely hung on to that job longer than I needed to because it was for me. But I mean, by month 6, through selling through these print on demand companies, I started with Society 6, but I immediately started snowballing into as many as I possibly could find that had that similar business model. So at about month 6, I was earning more through those companies than I was at my 9 to 5 job.
Oh, wow.
But it's still, yeah, it really, really snowballed quickly. But I still hung on to that job for several years because, well, for a few factors. One was I loved it. I loved being a designer. I loved the agency that I worked at, the people I got to work with and collaborate with, my coworkers. I loved the clients, everything. And second of all, it still was this mental shift to think like, oh, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is the idea of quitting my job made me so nervous because a job felt safe. It had benefits, it had a steady salary, it had people that could tell me, what to work on and what to do. And it didn't feel like there was much risk. But if I quit that job and started doing this stuff on the side, even though it was making me more money, I still was so nervous about doing it. So it took me, several years to kind of build up the confidence and the courage and the belief in myself to be able to leave.
Yeah. Plus, the society, it's not something they expect. Like, this is not real. Like, when are you going to quit doing this and go to be living a normal life, being employed and all of that?
Yeah, exactly. When I told my parents that I was going to quit my job to be an artist, they were surprised, but they were supportive. They they asked me a few questions, and they believed in me. But I think their initial response, as with a lot of my peers and friends, was just like, "What are you doing? You're quitting your job at an agency to be an artist?" Like, oh, okay. Yeah. But that was several years ago. That was about three or 4 years ago, and I've definitely made it work.
Yeah, and plus you add another layer to it, that you are a digital nomad, right? Which a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, it's the other thing is I don't have one permanent home. I travel the world 24/7. Right now I'm in Tbilisi, Georgia,
Hmm.
kind of between Asia and Europe. And I've been here for about a month. I'm heading to Poland in a few days.
Hmm.
I'll be working there for a few weeks and then heading back down to Italy. But
Hmm.
yeah, I travel the world for my artistic inspiration and I take photos of the things I see. I work in co-working spaces. I have a lot of digital nomad entrepreneur
Hmm.
friends. I'm actually living with three of them now. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, so it's kind of this blend of solo travel. If, I really want to go see someplace, I'll check it out by myself. But then I also, spend a lot of time like co-living and co-working with friends that have the similar lifestyle. They're all running different businesses.
Hmm.
One is she has a fitness app. Another one is a strategist and copywriter. A third is a programmer. So there's a lot of different types of ventures that you can get into that give you the flexibility to live and work remotely.
Yeah, and do you do something like a mastermind as well when you guys meet once a week, or do you have it with these guys, or do you have a separate mastermind?
I'm in a few masterminds.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so a mastermind is basically you get together with either business peers or friends, whatever it is, and you discuss the challenges that your business is facing, or maybe your goals, or anything that you feel like talking about you want to elevate within your own business. And this group of people, maybe it's a group of 4 up to 10, they offer their own insights about how you should be proceeding with next steps. So I've been in different types of masterminds. One that was really great a few years ago was an accountability mastermind. So I was with 3 other girls, and we were all focusing on completing these big projects in the span of, we gave ourselves 4 months. So each of us completely different industries, but we would get together once a week and then talk about what we had accomplished the week prior, what we hope to accomplish the next week. And, the group of us together would keep each other accountable for meeting our weekly goals. So yeah, it was really beneficial. And then I'm in, big picture masterminds where we talk about what our big, hairy, audacious goal is, and then how we hope to reach that goal and the steps it would take to achieve it. So it's a really supportive community.
And how do you find these guys or girls, right? Because sometimes, yeah, there are some platforms, right? But also maybe recommendations.
Yeah, it's a combination of my friends. So if I'm in a city that I'll be in for probably a longer span of time, like I spend about 5 months of the year in Chiang Mai. So that's a really good opportunity for me to settle in, get into a good mastermind with friends that I know are going to be there for a while. And it's the people that I meet that are either in my circles, my friend circles of being digital nomads. It's people I can meet in co-working spaces. I'm part of an entrepreneur group called Dynamite Circle. And so we have these like Skype call masterminds where you're in with a group of 4 other people and you week you get together and talk about. So there's a lot of opportunities there, whether it's people you meet in a co-working space or people you meet through an entrepreneurship group.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. Because I think like a lot of people are interested in this and they maybe don't even know that exists, but it's super beneficial. So it's good to find the right people.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be some huge formal thing. You can just get together with a few friends and plan out, an hour a week of just getting together and kind of shooting ideas back and forth and seeing what kind of support or what kind of advice you're getting. It doesn't have to be this big organized thing. It can be pretty loose.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you actually balance your time, right? Because, like drawing, some people call it as a hobby, right? So you have to create a lot of stuff, plus the editing and all of the computer work. So do you work 24/7 or less?
Oh man. Yeah, I do a pretty bad job of setting boundaries for myself between personal life and work life. So, the two often blend together. So I just spent the weekend down in Azerbaijan with a group of friends, and it was definitely a vacation. It was 48 hours away from our laptops, but I had my phone with me, so I was still, checking emails and taking photos of things that I wanted to paint or draw later. But I found that having that kind of that blur between personal and work, it's actually fine because I'm really passionate about what I'm doing. So it doesn't always feel like work, even though I'm working.
Yeah, and how do you do everything by yourself, or do you have maybe assistant or some kind of help?
I built my company, and for the first few years, it was all solo. So I outsourced a few things through people I found on Upwork or Fiverr, especially when it came to programming or Facebook ads, things like that. But for the most part, I was running my company by myself. Although last fall, I just signed on with a licensing agent company. So it's a company called Jewel Branding and Licensing, and they represent me. So they go out and on my behalf pitch to new clients. They do a lot of that in between work of reviewing contracts, getting good rates, and then going out and finding new partners to collaborate with. So since signing on with them, it's been great because it cleared a lot off my plate, like a lot of those day-to-day tasks that really bogged me down. Now all of a sudden it's freed up that time where I can focus on the thing that I actually am really good at, which is creating art. I'm not really good at reviewing contracts and making sure everything is nice and tidy. I'm not good at going out and pitching myself to new clients and outreach. Like those are things that I was really terrible at. So finding a partner that can really help me with that, and that's their strength, and then I can focus on my strength, which is creating these designs that are then going to be selling.
Yeah, definitely, because a lot of creative people have a problem with that, like how should I price my art, or what is the percentage I should ask, because every time the project is a little bit different, maybe it's a different percentage. Did you have a steep learning curve in this area, or did you ask people, or how did you do that?
God. Yeah, my learning curve, I went in there, I was completely naive. With the very first contract I ever signed, it was with a company that wanted to license my artwork to put on wall art and home decor items. And they offered me a 10% royalty, which I know now is the industry average. But at the time, I was thinking like 10% royalty on the sales price. I'm going to make like $2 for every pillow that sells. Like that's so low. I'm not going to sign that. And I thought it was, so I was asking for like 50% royalty or 70. And these companies were like, no, we would never, like that they wouldn't even make a profit off of that. I was asking for a lot of things that I didn't get, but I also asked for a lot of things that I did get. I asked for mentions in their newsletters if they had a big email list. I asked for features on the homepage. I asked for shout outs on Instagram and Twitter. And these were things that cost that company, virtually nothing to give me, but it would make a really big deal for me. So what really was impactful for me was finding out, what kind of leverage points can be mutually beneficial. What's something that can cost them little, but will make a big difference for me. And so going into these contracts originally, my first contract ever, and having no idea how to price myself, and just responding to their initial offer, but then asking for the moon, after that, it actually was beneficial. It helps me learn, these industry norms, and also by asking for things that weren't originally written in the contract. I didn't get everything I asked for, but I did get a lot of it.
Yeah, definitely, because that's important to learn along the way, because then every next client, what to ask for or how to ask, right? So when you now along the way you learned how to ask for the percentage and all of that you can also brief your agency or they can advise you, so you don't have to deal with this, and now every new client what is basically your norm.
Yeah, exactly. So I was able to communicate with the agency that represents me, everything that I kind of look for, like that I prefer to get out of a contract. So if it's possible, one of my big points right now is I'm looking for opportunities to grow my social media, because there's a lot of opportunities there if you can get a big engaged following. And so, that agency, they know that that's a big priority for me. So they know it's something to always kind of fit into contracts. I've told them that it's really important for me to always keep my signature on my work. So that's something that, every contract that, they're finessing with a new partner, that always gets written in. And it's not like I'm blind to those contracts too. Before anything, I always have to sign everything. So they do all that negotiation and that back and forth on my behalf. The final contract gets sent to me, I can review it and then sign it, and then we're good to go. But yeah, having someone that's kind of got my back with that, because, the higher royalty rate I can get on something, it's going to be beneficial for not just me, but for that agency as well, since we're splitting those profits.
Yeah. And did you find them or they found you?
They found me. I'd been researching a lot of agencies because I was interested in looking for representation. And then I just it was almost like, it was this indecision stalemate where I couldn't make up my mind. But I'd done a lot of research. So when they contacted me, they were actually, they were on my top tier of list of agencies that I would love to have represent me. So it actually worked out really well. They contacted me. I was already familiar with them, and we really got the ball rolling.
Yeah, because that's definitely helpful. So super
Yeah.
good. And
Yeah.
when you are actually working with new clients you haven't worked before, how do you make up your mind that if you want to work with them, if it is beneficial for your brand, or even if it is a starting company, but maybe you like what they are doing, how do you make these decisions?
It's a combination of gut instinct and then research. So, for example, if it's a new company, I want to make sure that they're a company that isn't going to rip me off. There's a lot of trust in licensing. I'm sending these high-res files of my paintings to people, and if they decide to fudge the numbers and tell me that only 12 things sold when really it was 1,200, I would have no idea. So there's got to be a lot of trust there in the people that I decide to work with. And so if it's a brand new company, I'll usually give them a few months and see who else they're working with. And if it's other artists that I recognize, I'll email them and be like, hey, I noticed you had an account with blah, blah, blah. How's it going? And then this artist community, like those of us that are into licensing, we're always in communication with each other. So I get an email probably about once a week from someone that's like, hey, I see that you're selling through blah, blah, blah company. Is everything going okay? Are they trustworthy? Can I sell with them? So, we talk to each other. And so the fact that we have this community and we unite and stay together, I think it's been really, really powerful, and it helps us all, rise together. And then to your other point was, how do you decide with it was a new company, and then what was your other question?
And how does it kind of reflect on your brand, like if it fits?
Yeah, that's the other thing. So there's definitely companies that I really, really want to do work with. Like Anthropology is one that I haven't worked with them yet, but I have my sights on them because there's a lot of opportunities for my audience for our audiences to combine with each other. So, the people that shop at Anthropology, it's that kind of same demographic of the types of audience that purchase my artwork. So that would be an amazing one. That would be an amazing collaboration. Target, Urban Outfitters, those were great ones as well for me to collaborate with because there was a lot of benefits to merging those audiences together, especially Urban Outfitters. That was a really impactful point for my brand in terms of getting to have that brand association with a company like Urban Outfitters was just absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And when you were also deciding on which art styles or what to sell at the beginning, maybe, did you have a wider range? Because now you have also watercolors, you have some illustrations, like made in Illustrator. So was it a problem at some point that it's like completely two different styles, but they are all colorful? So how did you put everything together? Because a lot of artists are talking about this, like you have to have one style, nothing else.
When I was getting started, I had a wide-ranging variety of styles. So I did a lot of illustrations with India ink and a stylus. I did watercolors. I did acrylic. I did these digital collages, and the ones that were selling the best were the watercolor pieces. So I started with a pretty wide variety of styles. Watercolor was doing really well for me, so I decided to focus on that. Specifically at the time, back in 2014, it was a lot of watercolor florals with, inspirational quotes attached that were done in calligraphy. And so that was kind of that was really my jam for a while, and that's where I was making the most money. So I was really pursuing that hard. So I was really pushing for those watercolor florals, the quotes, and then kind of expanded from there. But I only figured that out because I started with such a wide range of styles, and clearly, like the digital collage stuff I was doing was, it was awful. No one was buying it. I look back on that and I'm embarrassed. But yes, I cut that out pretty quick. But yeah, I learned what to focus on and what these customers were purchasing, and then I really went full speed ahead. And then when I got to a place where I felt like I had a little bit more traction, people were buying my work, and I was selling maybe 50 products a day. So I had a lot of opportunity there to maybe expand and then see what else I could do. And so when I got to a point where I had that traction and a little bit more of a comfort of, okay, if this doesn't work, that's okay, but I can try it out. Then I started trying more styles and kind of seeing what would stick there. So that's when I got more into the digital illustrations. I started bringing back that acrylic that I had been working with originally, but I started painting in a slightly different style that was more homogenous with what was selling well. But yeah, it was kind of like I started out really wide, narrowed in, got comfortable, and then slowly started expanding. But yeah, that turned out to be I think that was pretty impactful as well, It really taught me, how to depict what I think is going to be on trend, what I think people will be buying, and then how to take little risks. Like maybe I'll branch out a little bit and see how that goes. Okay, that didn't work. Oh, but this did work. So it kind of helped me along this path. I don't want to just paint the same thing every single day, watercolor florals. But, it's important to kind of grow as an artist. And you also have to grow with trends. Those paintings that were selling well back in 2014, some of them are doing okay, but for the most part, those consumers have moved on and they're on to new things now. So it's a big part of it is keeping up with those trends and keeping up with what the customer demand is.
Yeah, so where do you do the research for the trends, like magazines, blogs, or everything?
It's a lot of different stuff. I love following fashion blogs. I wear the same t-shirt every day, but I love observing fashion. So the things that are on the runway are a really great indicator of what's going to be in style for what I'm doing. So even though I'm doing these surface designs and wallpaper and, apparel or t-shirts, that's not necessarily going to be, it's not going to be a direct correlation of what you see on Prada walking down in, winter 2020. But there are certain things you can find patterns in that. So maybe if neons are becoming really popular, then that's an indicator for me. That's something I can easily incorporate into my style. Something another example would be kind of these mixed media. So if you see a lot of, gold with pastels, that's another thing that I can incorporate into my artwork. I follow home decor blogs as well. So, if it's whatever, what Jonathan Adler is doing or what West Elm is doing can also be really beneficial for me, where I can see, not everything is going to apply to me, but you can also find patterns within those things. Like if everyone is suddenly putting something out there, whether it's a handbag or a shoe or a nightstand that's cork material dipped in bright fluorescent hot pink, I can apply that to what I'm doing as well. So you find these patterns, and then that is kind of like how I determine what a trend would be, and then I look for opportunities to apply that to what I'm doing.
Yeah, because you create a lot of artwork. So do you create like a list for yourself, like for example the pink, like okay, I want to incorporate pink, then some other stuff? Like, do you create like 10 artworks per day, or what is your creation process?
Output, on average, I'm trying to put at least one piece out there a day. So when I illustrate something, it's not just that one illustration that's said and done. Maybe I paint a picture of miniature pigs. That was one I just finished a few weeks ago. So that painting itself is one file that I can send out, but I can also digitally rearrange that illustration to create a pattern, and then all of a sudden it could be printed on a duvet cover. I can change the color palette to be like bubblegum pink, and then I could sell it on something else. So there's one illustration can live a very long life and can be applied to a lot of different things. So that helps diversify a little bit, and it takes, the effort it takes to create a painting, all of a sudden it just tenfolds the opportunities to get it out there in the world. But in terms of how I decide what to paint, it's kind of a combination of painting whatever I feel like painting. So I mean, I'm an artist after all, so I want to do something that I have that creative inspiration coming through. But then I'm also painting things that I hope are going to sell well. So I'll get trend boards from clients about the beginning of every quarter. A lot of clients send me what their trend projections are for the next quarter. So maybe someone says something like, okay, lettuce and snails are really gonna be in the fall. I actually got that one recently. I was like, lettuce and snails, really? But I some snails. So so it's a combination of seeing what my clients are looking for, and then trying to put something together that will appeal to them, that I know that they're going to push hard with their marketing and try and license out. And also a combination of just the things that I believe might be strong potential sellers. After all, I'm an artist, but this is my livelihood. So my incentive is to create artwork that I think is going to sell really, really well. And it can be really tricky to predict sometimes. Like sometimes I'll paint something and I'll think like, oh, this is going to sell really well. And then nothing happens. And it can be frustrating. It's like, oh, why did that not sell well? And then something else that I painted that I think like, oh, this might do okay, just soars and skyrockets. So I think I do a good job of predicting, but I'm always proven wrong by, what starts taking off and what doesn't. About, I would say 10% of my my overall portfolio of thousands of pieces earns me about 90% of my licensing income. So it's a big strategy that's worked out well for me is just massive output. I create a lot of art. I do a lot of illustrations, paintings, patterns. I put it all out there. And then if 10% of that does really well, then that's going to earn me a living.
Yeah, which is super great. And I'm sure everyone is now thinking like, which are the artworks which are selling the best, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to my Society 6 shop and you can sort by bestsellers and you can see the ones that are performing best for me.
Yeah. So everyone can check out your Society 6 because you have a lot of stuff to choose from there. And
a lot of stuff.
Yes, definitely, because I was looking and you have so many things, which is amazing. And I'm sure everyone can choose something. So yeah. And how do you actually create your income streams? Is it mainly from Society 6 and licensing, or is it like, I don't know, 1/3 from teaching, or how do you kind of do this split?
So it used to be I would say about 90% of my income used to be coming in through entirely art licensing and print on demand. So art licensing meaning like a contract with Target, and print on demand is a company like Society 6 that is online and prints products as people are purchasing them. Yeah, it used to be about 90%, and then 10% was other. So it was freelance design work I was doing. It was online teaching. It was selling products through my own website. I set up a Shopify store. But it wasn't really that significant. But one thing I've noticed over the last year or so is that the online teaching income has really been rising as I've been putting more classes out on Skillshare. So right now it's about 75-25, and 25 is coming through these online courses that I have available. Like all of my online courses are available through Skillshare, and it's classes that I teach with two creatives, and it's either creative skills like how to do hand lettering or watercolor or acrylic, or it's entrepreneurial skills specifically geared at creatives, like a one-on-one on how to get involved with art licensing that covers everything from pricing yourself to contracts to knowing when you see a good deal and when something is going to be, not in your best interest. But yeah, as I've been putting out those courses, it's been really beneficial for me in two ways. One is that income coming in, which is great. And secondly, I have this opportunity to reach this massive community of entrepreneurs that are, or artists that are wanting to succeed, but they aren't quite sure how. So there's a really deep sense of fulfillment in being able to help those people.
Yeah, definitely, because if sometimes people just decide, okay, maybe I want to learn how to draw, and even they don't want to pursue it as a career, and they just like, okay, I will take this class because it's so interesting. So yeah.
Yeah, you can pick and choose.
Yeah, definitely. And so when you also mentioned that you had like licensing through the platforms like Society 6, but also like Target or these big brands, right? So that split was 50-50 in terms of licensing, or it was bigger maybe through like Society 6 type of platforms?
It was definitely bigger through print on demand. Mm-hmm. So because I did such a poor job of outreach when I was getting started, I cold call emailed so many different companies. I would stalk them on LinkedIn and look for buyers at Nordstrom or wherever and send them emails or messages introducing myself. I used to send out packets introducing myself and including some pieces of artwork. That paid off zero. I spent so much effort on that. And it's not that those strategies can't work, but I clearly wasn't doing the right thing. So it was a really slow grow for me in terms of selling through these stores, these big stores like Target. I'm selling through Nordstrom now, so not at all through my own outreach. It was through the agency that I partner with that represents me. But it was definitely a slow grow, and so now I'm finally getting to a point where these in-store companies, that income stream is starting to rise up to where print on demand is, which is always, print on demand is how I was able to afford to quit my job and get started on this career path. So it's still my primary source of income, but I'd love to see these in-store opportunities start to elevate as well. And I think they will with the agency that I signed on with to represent me.
Yeah, definitely. Because as you mentioned now, with the help of the agency and now growing your business, do you still consider yourself a more artist or more entrepreneur, or how do you introduce yourself when you meet other people?
It depends on who I'm talking to. So if I'm talking to other entrepreneurs, I mention that I'm an entrepreneur, because if I say I'm an artist, it's like, oh, she's not an entrepreneur. But if I'm talking in a creative circle, I feel more comfortable mentioning that I'm both. But as far as which one I identify with more, that's a hard one, because I don't do the entrepreneur stuff because I have to. I do it because I really enjoy business thinking and strategy and looking for opportunities to up-level my brand. That's something that I get a lot of fulfillment out of. And I also get fulfillment out of painting. So it's been great because I found this opportunity where I can blend both of these passions together in a way to build a viable company.
Yeah, yeah. Because also the location independence, if you think about like having your own business, right? Would you still decide to go more for the location independence, or if you have like great business opportunity, maybe back home, but you have to be at the same location?
Oh, I would take a pay cut to continue this entrepreneur or this location independent lifestyle. That was a big reason too of why I decided to leave this agency world and this steady career path working for a firm. I wanted more vacation days. I wanted more opportunities to travel. That's a really big incentive and drive for me in life. Is I love being able to pack up my bags, head somewhere else on a whim, maybe go live in Georgia for a month, which is what I'm doing right now. Yeah, having that autonomy and freedom over where and when I decide to work is absolutely vital for me. I don't think I could go back to having to be in one place because I'm committed by somebody else to be there. Having a boss or a company or an investor tell me I have to be in one place, that would be a deal breaker for me.
Yeah, that's a very tough decision. Yeah, the thing like amazing business or more like, more free.
Yeah, and if I do decide to settle down somewhere, I want it to be my decision, not because I'm being pressured into it by, outstanding circumstances.
And how do you choose the countries to go to? Is it more the art inspiration or like, oh, I haven't been in this part of the world yet?
It's a little bit of both. Art inspiration, I get a lot of art inspiration in Southeast Asia, which is where I spend, about half the year, mostly in Chiang Mai, Thailand, but then I'll also do, visa runs over to Vietnam or Laos or Cambodia. I can only stay in Thailand for a set amount of days before I've got to leave the country, get my passport stamped and come back in. So I have a lot of opportunities to travel within Southeast Asia, and there's so much artistic inspiration there. I mean, for about 2 years, pretty much everything in my portfolio were these tropical plants and orchids and monkeys and things I would see while hiking in the jungle or visiting. And it was, the entire aesthetic of my portfolio for a few years. So that was so much massive creative inspiration. But then I also go to places where I'm not going there for the art inspiration. I'm going there for the experience. So for my 30th birthday, I wanted it to be extra special because I was turning 30. So I wanted to go up to the Arctic Circle. My birthday's in late June. So the summer sun will never set in the Arctic, past a certain parallel. So I went up to this group of islands called Svalbard, which is halfway in between mainland Norway, and the North Pole. And I got to be, outside at midnight, the second I turned 30, with the sun shining above me, drinking a beer and walking down the main road. Like, that was pretty cool. But even then, my incentive for going there was to have this amazing, Arctic Circle experience where you can't even leave the main town, Longyearbyen, without a guide with a high-powered rifle because of polar bear attacks. Like, it was legit.
Great.
Yeah, so it's like, oh my God, I have to see that for real. But I went up there purely to have that experience. But then, I still found myself finding inspiration while I was up there, in the tundra, the Arctic, and finding things to paint afterwards. I did a lot of patterns that were based off of these kind of like Scandinavian and Norwegian textiles. So even when I go somewhere that I'm going there purely for the tourist mode experience, I'll still find opportunities to get inspired.
Yeah, because then you can take pictures of stuff and then you can create something afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even when I was on that trip, I wasn't traveling with all my art supplies, but I did have my camera. So it's, I photographed everything that possibly struck a little bit of inspiration. And then when I was back in my apartment, I had all my watercolors, my laptop, everything that I used to create artwork, my scanner. I was able to just paint, as in a frenzy for a week, and then letting all of that inspiration kind of come through in those paintings.
And you have like a portable scanner and all of these kind of portable things, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I travel with a portable scanner. I travel with all of my watercolors, acrylics, India inks. Honestly, my bag, it's mostly art supplies
I
and then
can
like
imagine that.
Yeah, and so it's like every time it's just like just over the limit or like just barely underneath the limit for what I can do as a checked bag, which is, maybe 22 kilos. But so I have to like put all my art supplies, like the really heavy stuff in a backpack that I then put a jacket over so that I just look like I have a hunchback when I'm getting on these flights because my art supplies are so heavy. But so far I haven't been caught and it's worked out pretty well.
But
So
that's good, that's good. Yeah, because I always like, okay, I'll just take a tablet if I'm traveling somewhere because the other stuff is just so massive. But yeah.
And sometimes I'll like if I've gone back to the States, which is where my parents live. I grew up in Kansas. I've got every time when I'm traveling, I just stockpile a bunch of stuff that I collect on my travels, dump it in my childhood bedroom. My parents hate it. They're like, stop bringing stuff home. But yeah, when I'm back home, I'll have a bunch of art supplies that just accumulate. And then when I go to a new place, say I go back to my parents' house for a few weeks in the summer, and then I'm leaving again, I'll be like, okay, I'm just going to take the bare essentials. But then as I find myself packing, it's like, oh, I need that cerulean blue and the Prussian blue and probably the cobalt as well. So it's like, I'm like, oh, like clothes, like that's fine. I can buy clothes when I get there. But the paint, like I need all of that with me. So I cannot be a one bagger. Like I'm a terrible packer.
Yeah, because you cannot buy sometimes all the art tools which you like, maybe a sketchbook or special paint in some of the places, right?
Yeah, I was in Rome last summer and I had just done this illustration of this volcano and I wanted to it was a watercolor and I wanted to do all of the constellations, but I needed white acrylic and I had just left my white acrylic on this island because I was like, I can't keep traveling with this. And then as soon as I ditched it, like 2 days later, I needed it. And I was in Rome, so there should be an art supply store that's open, but it was Sunday and nothing's open. And I was like, I'm never leaving the white acrylic again. So it's like, yeah, but like it's pretty ridiculous. My bag is huge.
Yeah. And then you also travel with your computer, right? Because then also that's essential part. And what do you do if something happens with the computer? Do you always find some repair store or do you have to always send it somewhere or how does it work? Because just my computer broke like recently. That's why it's like what?
Yeah, that would be my absolute nightmare. I just spent about 3 months in Bali over the spring, and I was living in a villa with friends. And while I was there, it's really hot. The humidity is just insane. And my external hard drive, which is where I store all of my files, it failed. And so I lost. It was 5 months of work because I was a terrible backer upper. I forgot it up on Thanksgiving, and I lost 5 months of art files, and it was catastrophic. And so I called every place I could find on the entire island of Bali looking for people that could repair external hard drives. I got a hold of some guy that he said he would take a look at it. And from where I was, he was in Denpasar, which is the capital of Bali. And it's normally about a 2-hour drive from where I was. I made it there on my motorbike in like 38 minutes because I was just in this like complete panic mode. I was probably just driving terribly, but I was like, I've got to get there as soon as possible, have him take a look at it. And the bad news was he wasn't able to recover it. And then it took me 2 hours, like the normal 2 hours to drive home because it was just like sad driving at that point. But it's part of the risk, of this kind of lifestyle is, the tropics aren't great on electronics. So when that kind of stuff happens, you cross your fingers and you hope for the best. But it did teach me a really valuable lesson of always back up my stuff. So now I travel with 2 extra externals that I use to back up. I back up to the cloud whenever I have good internet. But yeah, 5 months of work was awful, but it could have been way worse. That's the thing. So what if I hadn't backed up in a year? That would have been, and it taught me a valuable lesson. And so now I very much respect my SSD and my external hard drives and my electronics. I treat them like babies now. Before I would just like throw stuff in my bag and it would be fine. Yeah, now it's, oh man, if I were walking down the street and I slipped and I was carrying my external, I would just like cradle it like a baby and take the blunt of the bird with my shoulder or something. But yeah, they're important.
So now putting stuff on the cloud as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Dropbox, everything.
But I guess all the travel has like much more advantages than disadvantages when you are traveling.
Yeah, I mean that was probably one of the worst case scenarios in terms of work. Was losing all of those files. But for the most part, I mean, And if I would have been more, more responsible and careful, it would have been so bad. But yeah, for the most part, I get way more enjoyment and benefits and personal and professional growth out of traveling than I think I would if I were kind of stagnant in one place. At least for me and my whatever, like what my personal drive is, that's what has been the most advantageous for me.
And do you also take time off to learn something new or take courses online even now?
Yeah, I still take Skillshare classes all the time. I learned how to do calligraphy by taking a Skillshare class. And then when I'm in a new place for the first time, I love getting on Airbnb experiences and seeing and then sorting by arts and crafts, I think is the filter. And you can see people in your area that are teaching, like locals that are teaching something that's indigenous to that area. So when I was in Vietnam for Christmas, I was searching Airbnb experiences, and I found this one where it was this old man. He was Vietnamese up in northern Vietnam, and he was teaching calligraphy classes. And just through Airbnb experience, it would be a personal, one-on-one class. And I signed up for it, and it was great. He didn't speak any English, but he brought a translator that did. So he was teaching me this very traditional Vietnamese calligraphy style that was very much based on Chinese calligraphy style. And I do modern hand lettering, and so I know how to do that, but I've never learned a traditional Asian style before. So I got to spend a few hours just one-on-one with him and this translator, learning all of these ancient techniques, and it was so cool. And it's something that now, like having learned those skills, I can incorporate into new pieces that I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that sounds awesome. I haven't tried that yet, but I always go with Airbnb, but that actually somehow didn't occur to me.
Yeah, Airbnb experiences. It's great. It's always a local person. You can do food tours with them. You can do city walking tours. You can learn how to make textiles. I mean, it all just depends on where you're going and the types of things that are offered. But that's kind of my travel hack secret when I want to
Cool.
kind of get in with the locals and learn something new.
Have you tried also trusted house sitters?
No, what is that?
That's you just travel and take care of someone's pet in their location. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I can put also a link for others if they want to check out. But that's my favorite way to travel as well. So you can stay in a totally awesome, nice house with a pool or like small apartment in Tokyo or whatever, and they have just different types of animals, and it's just so cute. So it's just exchange. So basically, they don't pay you, you don't pay them,
Yeah.
but it's super nice experience.
I love animals. I love that idea. I have a friend. She's in Medellin right now, in Colombia, and she has a little dog. And so she was leaving for 2 weeks to go to this retreat in Europe, and she needed someone to watch her dog for 2 weeks. And she was just posting on Facebook, looking for anyone that could, head down to Medellin. They'd have a penthouse apartment to stay in for free. She just needed someone to watch Zulu. If I would have known about this, I would have recommended it to her.
Yeah, because I think you're also obsessed with animals, as I am. So you might like that.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Yeah, I
the
actually
travel
got
location. Yeah.
pre-exposure. Yeah, I got pre-exposure rabies vaccinations last year because I pet so many dogs and cats as I'm walking around on the street that I was like, it's only a matter of time before I get rabies. So I'm just gonna get the pre-exposure vaccine now, nip it in the bud. But yeah, it's I'm obsessed with animals.
But that's a good idea, yeah, because I choose locations where to travel, like, what animals can I see there?
Yeah, if you ever come to Thailand, there's a lot of elephant sanctuaries, and you can go on a volunteer basis and volunteer at an elephant camp for, a week, 2 weeks, a month, and learn everything about how to take care of those animals. It's pretty. I've never done it, but it's always been on my list.
Okay, I have something to put on my list. Great. So that's good.
Excellent.
Yeah, and so when we talk about the future, I would like to know what would you kind of plan for 5 to 10 years? What is your like dream scenario if you have that vision?
Oh man, there's a lot of different things that I'm interested in doing. I mentioned that I teach these Skillshare classes, and it's something that like I mentioned, I've got a lot of personal fulfillment out of doing since I began teaching. So I'm looking for opportunities to expand that into something that can be more personal and maybe more one-on-one. I've got 20,000 students that take my classes, but I never meet any of them face to face. So the idea of being able to grow this education platform where I have more opportunities, maybe it's not in person, but maybe something where a small group class of maybe 10 students where we can do Skype calls once a week and I can see what they're working on and advise. That sounds really appealing. so I'm kind of looking for a strategy for how I'd want to kind of build that out. So that's definitely one aspect. There's a lot of places in the world that I've never visited that I'd love to see. I'd love to see Antarctica. I've never been to Africa, India. There's so much of the world to explore and so little time. So that's more of a personal goal. And then a lot of little things. I'd love to publish a book with my paintings and the stories of the inspiration behind each piece. Maybe set up some sort of affiliate program, where it's benefiting maybe not just my artwork, but maybe a group of us together that kind of a group of artists that can maybe put together some sort of co-op and have our artwork, together elevating everyone else's. There's a lot buzzing around, and so it's just a matter of kind of taking these small baby steps and then seeing what's working and what's not working.
And do you have a plan for next year already, like these to-do lists, what to do first?
Oh man. Well, I just finished filming my new online class, which is about creating surface design and creating patterns and then learning how to license those out to companies. So I'll be publishing that in the next few weeks. And then next year, it's I have like a few pinpoints throughout the year of like, I know I'm going to be in this country at this time for this event. So for example, I'll be speaking at an entrepreneurship conference in Bangkok in a few months. So I know I have to be in Bangkok by October to speak at that conference. So it's like wherever I am in the world before that or after, I have that one thing set in stone. Same thing with Italy next May. I go to an entrepreneurship. It's a founders retreat and it's 10 days on this island. And so I know that, late May, I will definitely be in Italy. And so everything else just kind of gets sandwiched in and around those dates. But so it's, I might not know where I'm going to be. I don't know where I'm going to be 2 weeks from now. I'm going to Poland for a week and a half. But after that, I have no idea. But I know that I'm going to be in Montana in like 2 months. So it's sometimes it's just filling in the blanks.
Yeah, you should visit Switzerland. I will be here.
Ooh, I'd love to. I went to Zurich last winter, but it was when the beast from the east, that massive like cold front was coming through from Siberia, yep. And it was so cold. I would wander around the lake just like,
oh no,
like, hold up. But yeah, I'd love to go visit Switzerland in the summer.
Now it's like 35, so definitely good time to swim in the lake and the river and just basically hang around. So most likely will melt.
That's I live in the tropics, so anywhere super warm, that's my place.
Super cool. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing all of this artistic journey and entrepreneurial tips. I'm sure everyone appreciates it so much.
Oh, thank you so much for this opportunity.
So thank you so much again, and I will put all the links and everything in the description, so guys can check out the Society 6, your Skillshare classes, and basically everything what we mentioned.
Perfect. Thank you.
So thank you so much, and thanks everyone who was watching or listening, and see you guys in the next episode. Bye.